I've put off filming this video for months now. Technically, I wanted to talk about audiobooks with you in May. So after a few months, I was like, maybe I just won't do this video, but you guys kept asking me about it. We're gonna do a little bit of a twist because I do want to talk about the Stolen Kingdom audiobook. It is out in the world, in case you didn't know. So I went back to my notes. This is my YouTube notebook, by the way, and I scrapped the original idea of how to do an audiobook because honestly, I don't know that much, and what I do know, you can Google really easily. The short 10-second answer is I went through ACX, which is something that publishes to Audible and Amazon. And there's also options like, I think it's called Findaway Voices on like Draft to Digital, for example. There's a lot of ways to do audiobooks, obviously, and I only know the way that I did. So I'm gonna share with you my story and the steps that I went through, my amazing narrator, because I never got a chance to shout her out, which I plan to do. And I also want to give you a tiny sneak peek at the audiobook, as well as my honest opinion on if audiobooks are worth it. Something that many of you have asked me, and I'm finally ready to share. So stick around, we're going to talk about all of that. Like I said at the beginning, I went through a company called ACX for my audiobook. So this company has tons of articles. They explain everything pretty thoroughly, although you do have to search for it sometimes, but I feel like everything that you would ask me is on their site, or I had to, message the help desk. So you may have to do that if you use ACX, but essentially there are two different ways to go about making an audiobook on ACX. Your first option is you could narrate the book yourself, which let me tell you would be incredibly difficult because they have really strict guidelines about what is acceptable for an audiobook. For example, how many seconds you pause after a period versus a comma. If there's any background noise whatsoever, you have to have super high quality microphones, which are expensive. I did not want to go this route because not only do I not know how to do that, but I also don't know how to do character voices and act out a story, which is another really cool quality of an audiobook. So I went with the second option, which is to hire a narrator through ACX. Side note, you probably could hire a narrator outside of ACX and bring your files to ACX, but I just really like working with somebody directly on the platform because ACX is kind of like a buffer, helping you both know what you need for the book to meet requirements on that platform. So it's super helpful for both people. So I uploaded my document. I got together the, it's an acting word, audition. That's the word. You set up an opportunity for narrators to audition by creating all the requirements that they'll walk you through when you go to the platform. So I'm not gonna walk you through that because like I said, I just followed the instructions and I know you can too, you're smart. So you've got this. I actually opened up my book to auditions and I started getting auditions, but then I also had a narrator in mind. So this is kind of moving to part 2 of this video because I really wanted to ask Merphy Napier if she would be my narrator. So I had been following her YouTube channel. She has an amazing booktube channel. She does a really good job. She had a pretty large audience already when I asked her, so I wasn't sure if she would say yes or if she was too busy. I think she's actually stopped doing audiobook narration now because she is too busy, so I was like one of the last people to be able to work with her. So go check out Merphy's channel. I'll link it below and give her some love and support and subscribe to her channel because she is awesome and her videos are really fun. But when I wanted to work with her, I actually had to reach out to her. So that's the next cool thing is that ACX has a really cool platform where you can message directly on there and it just alerts you on your email. So we talked back and forth, we settled on a price and a time commitment, and I started sending her, what did I do? Not chapters. I sent her the whole document and she got to work. It ended up taking a few months because both of us weren't totally ready and we were moving at a slower pace because I had other things going on and I wasn't ready to release. What ACX recommends is that you go all the way through and you listen to what your narrator has and you give them notes on every single chapter if you need to. And then once they submit the, I'm sure there's a word for it, but it's been like 6 months and I can't remember. So when they submit the, the new file that's been improved and fixed, you should listen to it again and basically proofread it just like you would with a book. So it's a lot of work, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of insider information here. As someone who struggles to listen to audiobooks in general, I underestimated the time and effort and workload that this would be because my mind drifts. I am not an audio learner. I'm a completely 100% visual learner. Like, I excel at something that's visual. I can pick it up, no problem. Somebody tells me how to do something and I have to ask what, like 5 times. So, I mean, that might be an exaggeration or it might not. I really struggled because my mind would drift. So one of the things that I did was actually pull out the book and I started to read it as I listened to it. And that was the only way I was able to pay attention. My auditory skills are terrible. In fact, I am so bad that part of my process was actually to ask my critique partner, Brittany Wang, if she would listen to the chapters as well, because I stopped hearing things. And I know that just like with anything else, mistakes happen. So you need to catch them before publishing versus after. And that was the goal. But I really struggled to pay attention. Once the files were done and I had approved and listened to all of them, I submitted it, or maybe my narrator submitted it. We submitted it together, essentially, to ACX for approval. And because that was April when we did that and COVID was happening, my narrator Merphy said that she had heard the approval times for audiobooks was really extended. Like, I think it was supposed to be 40 days or something like that. But I got really lucky. My audiobook was approved, I think it was either 1 to 2 weeks later, and then it was live. And so it went live in May. I linked it below for anybody who's curious and wants to check it out, but I also have a gift for the first, I think 20 something people, 20 or 25 people who see this video and want to grab it. I have a handful of free discounts to grab this book for free in exchange for a review. I have a small handful of discount codes that ACX gave me to give away this book for free. And so I'm gonna link those codes below for whoever grabs them first, and I will try to track them and put taken by them or free if they're not grabbed yet. If you wanna get a free audiobook of The Stolen Kingdom, you are welcome to it. First come, first serve. I only have so many, but I will link that below as a little Christmas gift for you guys. ACX creates a certain number of these codes for the US and the UK specifically, so I'll note that below as well. But I think if you have an account on one of those 2 places, even if you're not in that country, I think you can still get it. And like I said, they only make so many, so I apologize if they're all used up by the time that you watch this, but I hope that you'll go check out the book if you like audiobooks. That is still going to be linked below no matter what. No pressure whatsoever, it's totally up to you, but if you would like to leave a review after you get a free copy, I would love that. And if you buy it and read it, I would love a review as well, because reviews help authors so much. But totally up to you. And then the last thing that I want to do, actually 2 last things, is I want to share a sneak peek of the audiobook, and then I want to end with my honest opinion on if audiobooks are worth it. So let's roll the sneak peek.
Chapter 1. Ari. My hands sat clenched in my lap. I didn't play with the gold and pearl fabric of my dress, or tap my fingers on my throne, or even twitch an eyebrow. But underneath my skirts, my toes tapped a steady rhythm, counting down the seconds until dinner. Normally, I adored holding court with my father. Learning to rule meant everything to me. But not today. Not for the last few months, actually. We'd listened to the nobles list their complaints for nearly 4 hours now. My head buzzed with voices, like a swarm of locusts. The more people in the room, the louder they pulsed until the pressure was unbearable. At least if I kept still and avoided drawing attention to myself, it was more manageable. I sat as quiet as the serving girl concealed in the corner.
What do you think? I hope you liked it. I am so proud of how this audiobook turned out. Again, big shout out to Merphy Napier, and I will link her channel below if you want to check her out, because she did an amazing job. And I've never done an audiobook before, but I would like to share now my honest opinion on if they are worth it. All right, I'm gonna bring you down to this level so I can sit and relax while we chat. Now, this is just my initial impression after, what's it been, 6 months, I think? So I haven't fully formed it, and I also want to make sure that you guys know this is no reflection on Merphy. This is in a lot of ways a reflection on my poor job at marketing an audiobook, because I've never marketed an audiobook before. I was essentially a debut in the audiobook world, and I went through something in the month that it released, and I just did not have the ability to market it at all. So it essentially went out without anyone saying a word into the world, and it just kind of sat there. And I did tell some people, and there were people who bought it, and there are reviews on there, so thank you for that. I really appreciate it. But I'm essentially coming into the marketing now. This is my first attempt, so if you want to help a girl out, help me get the word out about the audiobook. I know it's late. I almost just skipped this video, but again, you guys kept asking for it, so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna suck it up and be really honest with you guys about how I feel about it. I wanna talk about the sales side of things, the marketing side of things a little bit, and I guess the work, you could say, the amount of work put in. Let's start there, because that's the first thing that I wasn't aware of. I honestly think that in my mind, I was like, I don't have to do anything. When I signed up to do this, I was like, there's a narrator. I'm golden. I don't have to do anything. And obviously, you heard my story at the beginning. It was a lot of work. It was intensive. It was not my skill set. I actually talked to an author who said that when she does audiobooks, she hires somebody else to listen to it for her and make notes. And I was like, that's genius. And I think at that point was when I asked my critique partner, and I was like, can I hire you to do this? Because I cannot. I don't have the skill set. And you might be totally different than me. You might be fine. You might love audiobooks. Everybody's so different. The second thing I want to get into before we talk sales and marketing is that there is a group of people who really, really, really love audiobooks. And I know that, but I don't feel like I have created that space, I guess, on my social media platform. I've not promoted it. I didn't start out with audiobooks, which I think would have helped me a lot to do it all at once. But I don't feel like I have that big of an audience for audiobooks. And I could be wrong, because again, I did a terrible job at marketing. And so I'm trying to step up my game, starting with this video, and talk about it more often in the future, because I honestly I really, really blew it. So that's on me. But when it comes to sales, I wanna say I have only sold, I will look it up. I actually just looked it up. I'm gonna show you let me make sure there's no important information on here. Oh, I have messages on there, whoops. Let me show you, let's see if I can zoom in here. Right here at the top, 54 audiobooks sold. So to me, that's not much. Like, it's not bad, don't get me wrong, that's really awesome, especially considering I didn't market this at all. But that actually leads to my second biggest complaint for audiobooks. Actually, this is my biggest complaint by far, which is that at least on ACX, there's no set royalty number. There is no, like on KDP, they tell you this is how much you're gonna make per book, and on Ingram Spark and Drafted Digital, everywhere. They tell you what your royalty is going to be, right? On ACX, they don't tell you that. And it's super frustrating to look into it. It took me a few hours to kind of gather an understanding, which is that essentially people come into ACX sometimes with memberships and sometimes not. So sometimes they really don't pay anything for a book because they have a membership for so many, and sometimes they pay a lot for a book. So while it might say, I think it's $19.99 on Amazon right now, they might actually only pay a few dollars technically for it. And so my royalty is royally screwed up and confusing and doesn't make any sense. And again, I did a lot of research on this, and I couldn't find anything that was confidently, this is for sure the number, but I did read some things that said an average of maybe $4 royalty, maybe, which leads to another thing. You don't get to price your own book. They price it for you. So my book has gone on sale, and then it's not. Whatever the case may be, they price it. I have zero control over that, so it feels a lot more like a publisher to me, which might be one of the reasons that I sort of stepped back and forgot about it. It feels more like they're taking care of it. I don't really do anything, which is not the case. Like, I still need to market it. That's one of my biggest pet peeves, is not even knowing what the royalty is. Because normally when I go into a book release, I like to take the dollar amount of money that I've spent on the book so far, divide that by the royalty per book that I know that I'm going to get, and then that gives me a number of books, which is my goal number of books that I want to sell to make my money back, so that I can know, okay, I've made my money back this week, or whatever the case may be. But I don't have that with ACX. I have to look at my bank statements, which, let's get into that now. All I have to go on are my bank statements, which really irritate me. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of accountability there. There's not a lot of me knowing what's going on with the finances side at all, which I just don't like. I don't like the lack of transparency. It bothers me. So what you saw on that dashboard is all I really see. They do, I think, monthly reports as well, and I just have to go with what they say. So that leads into, I guess, the last thing and another complaint that I have. Again, this is my honest opinion. You might have a totally different experience than I do, but the audiobook narration side of things is, because of how many hours are put in and you're paying someone else to do it, incredibly expensive. It is so expensive. I paid just a little bit over $1,000, okay? So if I were to go in and say, you know, assuming that this $4 royalty is actually accurate, and if I were to divide 1,000 by 4, I need to sell 250 copies to make back my money. And that is, again, not a for sure number for me, because they are not transparent with their royalties. But as you saw with my, I think it was 54 sales on that dashboard, I have not sold 250 copies. That is a lot of copies for a debut, essentially, because I'm brand new to the audiobook world and I didn't do any marketing, which, again, that's on me. That's not Merphy's fault. It's not even ACX's fault. It's my fault for not getting the word out and telling people. But I essentially need to, I think, sell about 200 more audiobooks before I make my money back, which is completely depressing. It's not what I'm used to for a release at all. I'm somebody who likes to budget. I'm a little bit cheap, and when I do invest in something, I like to invest in things where I know I'll make my money back. So I actually want to do a video on author budgets in the near future, because I think budgets are really important, and I feel like I did not adhere to how I normally approach budgeting and financial decisions when it came to audiobooks. So if I were to talk to my old self in the past, and this might not apply to you, that's why I'm gonna say, if I were to talk to Bethany in the past, I would say, hey, number one, if you're gonna approach this, try to do something where you can get a deal. Like, for example, ACX has an option where you can share the royalties with the narrator. It is not necessarily something that every narrator is going to want, because it's obviously more risky for them. They don't get a for sure paycheck. They have to be in your shoes with you, where you both wonder if anything's gonna happen. So I don't know if every narrator out there is going to be willing to do that, but maybe some brand new narrators who want to get a portfolio going might be willing to do that. So that's something I probably would do if I were to go back. I would want to save money, at least on my first book. And then the second thing I would want to do is market it a whole lot better. So if you haven't noticed, this is what I'm trying to do now, just a little bit late. And it's totally okay to market a release a little bit late as well. The book isn't over on release day. You can definitely keep marketing. So my camera battery is about to die, but that's pretty much all I had for my honest opinion and my experience with audiobooks. So if you want to support me, one of the ways you can do that for free is just spread the word and tell people about it. You can share this graphic and let people know. I would love that. And then also, if you want to, you can go check it out. I always will link it below all of my videos. And on top of that, if you're feeling really extra generous and you want to leave a review, then I just want to say thank you in advance. You're amazing. I again have those free audiobook codes listed below for as long as they last. Thank you guys for watching, for supporting me, for always being here even when I do dumb things like market 6 months later. And I hope this video was helpful to you and gave you some thoughts about if you want to do audiobooks in the future. Thank you for watching. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, ring the bell, all that good stuff, and I will talk to you guys again very soon. Bye!